So picture this. In the summer of 2014, a group of Dutch intelligence agents were essentially sitting in a dark room, eating popcorn, and just watching live high-definition security camera footage.
Right, which is wild to think about.
Yeah, completely wild. They're watching Russian hackers literally badging into a corporate office building right in the heart of Moscow. And welcome to another deep dive. Today, our mission is to cut through all the overwhelming noise and really the polarizing rhetoric surrounding the 2016 U.S. presidential election.
Because there is a lot of noise out there.
Exactly. So by unpacking excerpts from Greg Miller's book, The Apprentice, we are looking strictly at the factual behind-the-scenes timeline of all this cyber espionage and political maneuvering. Now, before we get into it, I need to put a quick disclaimer out there.
Yeah, that's definitely important for this one.
Right. The sources we are exploring today contain highly politically charged material. I mean, it involves both left-wing and right-wing figures. So we want to make it unequivocally clear to you, we are not taking any sides here, nor are we endorsing any of the viewpoints found in these sources.
We're just looking at the data.
Exactly. Our only job today is to impartially report on the content provided and help you understand the sheer scale of the events just as they are laid out in the original source material.
And what's fascinating here is the sheer improbability of this story. I mean, when you look at the mechanics of it, you have a Dutch intelligence agency, a Russian troll factory, a London wine bar, and a remarkably unprepared political campaign.
It sounds like a spy novel.
It really does. But somehow, all of these completely disparate elements collided to trigger one of the biggest FBI investigations in American history.
Okay, so we have to start with that unseen cyber invasion. I mean, the whole saga begins with this crazy digital game of cat and mouse halfway across the world.
Yeah, the first domino falls not in Washington, but actually in the Netherlands.
Right. So tell us about 2014.
So in 2014, the Dutch Intelligence Service, they're known as the AIVD, they pulled off what is frankly a David and Goliath feat in the cyber world.
Oh, for sure.
They managed to hack into a Russian SVR syndicate. And just for context, the SVR is Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service.
Okay, so they hacked the hackers.
Exactly. And this specific syndicate would later become known to the world as Cozy Bear.
Cozy Bear, right.
Yeah.
And the Dutch, they didn't just breach a server. They had what cyber spies call exquisite access.
Yeah, exquisite access is the perfect term. I mean, they literally tapped into the security cameras mounted right above the entrance to the hackers' lair in Moscow.
That is just insane to me.
Right. They were watching the Russian operatives file into work like they were clocking in for a normal 9-to-5 job.
Unbelievable.
And because they had this unprecedented access, in 2015, the Dutch watched in real time as these Russian hackers started infiltrating the servers of the Democratic National Committee.
DNC.
The DNC, yeah. In Northern Virginia, I mean, they could see the keystrokes. They watched the digital theft as it was actively happening.
So the Dutch see this, and they obviously warn the NSA. Then the NSA alerts the FBI, and this is where the system completely breaks down.
Oh, it's a total comedy of errors.
It really is.
That is.
So an FBI agent named Adrian Hawkins, he starts calling the DNC to warn them, but he gets transferred to this IT contractor named Jurd Tamening.
Right.
Hawkins gives him some IP addresses, tells him to look for signs of a Russian hacking group. But Tamian is essentially, a help desk guy.
He's fixing printers and resetting passwords.
Exactly. So he thinks it's a prank. He searches the logs, finds nothing, and literally ignores the FBI's follow-up calls for months.
Well, and the structural issue here is that Hawkins was operating under very strict FBI protocol.
Right. He couldn't just burst in.
No, he couldn't just kick down the door of a major political party without a warrant. So he had to rely on these increasingly desperate phone calls. Hawkins was so frustrated, he actually drove to the DNC at one point and asked the lobby guard to intercept Tamain.
Wow, just waiting in the lobby.
Yeah. It wasn't until February of 2016 that they finally sit down face to face. They met at a place called Joe's Cafe in Sterling, Virginia.
Over coffee.
Over coffee. The FBI shows Tamain his badge, pulls out detailed computer logs, and finally proves the breach is real.
Okay, let's unpack this. This is like getting a call from the police saying they can literally see burglars inside your house, but you hang up because you think it's just a telemarketer.
That is exactly what it's like.
And while you're ignoring the call, a second, completely different group of burglars kicks down your back door.
Yes, and that second group of burglars is crucial to the whole story.
Right.
Because by the time the DNC and the FBI finally start making a plan to remove Cozy Bear, a second wave of Russian hackers hits the DNC. This group is called Fancy Bear.
And they were different, right?
Very different. Unlike the stealthy first group, Fancy Bear was run by the GRU, which is Russia's military intelligence. They were loud and aggressive.
Yeah, they didn't just brute force their way through a firewall. They used a really simple technique called spear phishing.
Oh, the oldest trick in the book.
Literally. They sent emails disguised as routine Google security alerts to top officials, including campaign chairman John Podesta.
Right.
The email just said his password had been compromised, and it provided a link to change it. All it took was one person clicking reset password for the hackers to just walk right through the front door.
It's terrifying how simple it is.
They grabbed massive amounts of data. I mean, we're talking the DNC's entire opposition research file on Donald Trump, along with thousands of internal emails.
And, this highlights a massive vulnerability in human psychology.
How so?
Well, you can have the most expensive state-of-the-art firewall in the world, but if a high-level executive believes a fake Google security alert, your entire network falls.
Yeah, think about your own workplace security for a second.
Mm-hmm.
If a major national political party can dismiss an FBI warning because it got stuck at the IT help desk for months and then lose its entire database to a fake password reset link, how vulnerable is the data you interact with every day?
It really makes you think. But, stealing data is just traditional espionage. Nations do it to each other every single day.
Sure.
But to actually disrupt a democracy, you have to do something with that data. You have to weaponize it.
Right, so the Russians have this massive cache of stolen data, but to actually legitimize this operation in the American media ecosystem, they needed a distribution network. They needed a megaphone.
Exactly.
And that seamlessly moves us from the digital hack to the psychological operation.
Yes. And this is where we meet a man named Yevgeny Prigozhin.
Yeah.
He's often referred to as Putin's cook.
Which is a crazy nickname.
It is. He got it because he built a catering empire that serviced the Kremlin. But, his real value was handling the Kremlin's dirty work.
The shadow operations.
Right. Prigozhin funded a highly sophisticated corporate entity in St. Petersburg called the Internet Research Agency, or the IRA. Basically, the troll factory.
But this wasn't just a bunch of guys in their basements drinking energy drinks, right?
Not at all.
This was a well-funded corporate office with an HR department, performance reviews, and strict daily quotas.
They ran it like a Fortune 500 company. They even launched a specific initiative called the Translator Project.
Oh, the cultural research they did.
Yeah. They sent employees on reconnaissance trips across the United States just to study American culture, photograph landmarks, and map out political fault lines.
And didn't they watch American TV, too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Back in Russia, employees were literally watching the show House of Cards to perfect their American political idioms. They needed to understand the cynical view of Washington.
Wow.
And then they worked 12-hour shifts, just churning out posts to inflame racial, political, and social divides.
And the internal term for this tactic was govnostrana, which translates to crap country.
Such a bleak term.
It is. But the goal wasn't necessarily to promote a specific ideology at first, was it?
No, not initially.
Right. It was to sap American citizens' confidence in their own institutions, to make them feel like their country was fundamentally broken and falling apart.
Exactly. And they built incredibly elaborate fake personas to do it. They didn't just create a Twitter account and start shouting into the void.
Right.
They built entire networks of interconnected accounts that looked like real American grassroots organizations.
But, I have to push back here for a second.
Sure.
If these are just regular people making like 40,000 rubles a month to post 200-character comments, how on earth does that actually move the needle in a massive U.S. election? Isn't it just drops in the ocean?
It sounds like it would be, but you have to look at the strategy behind the algorithm.
Okay.
It's mass volume combined with hyper-targeted psychological warfare. They actively searched for American emotional fault lines, issues like race, guns, and economic anxiety.
The really divisive stuff.
Exactly. And when they found a hot-button issue, they flooded those specific online communities. To show you how effective this was, the IRA literally organized opposing protests in real-world American cities.
Like actual people showing up.
Actual people. In Texas, they used one Facebook group to organize a pro-Islamic rally, and simultaneously used another Facebook group they controlled to organize an anti-Islamic counter-protest across the street.
Oh my gosh.
At the exact same time, they brought real Americans out onto the streets to yell at each other, and it was entirely orchestrated from a desk in St. Petersburg.
That is terrifying. They used the stolen DNC data, once it was leaked, to amplify these real existing domestic frustrations.
Yes.
So when you see a post that makes your blood boil and makes you feel like society is collapsing, you really have to ask yourself,
Yeah.
am I reacting to a real neighbor, or am I being caught in an algorithm designed to sap my confidence?
That's the key. They were pouring gasoline on fires that were already burning in the American electorate.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about creating new anger. It was about weaponizing the anger that was already there.
Okay, so Russia has a two-pronged attack going. They are hacking the digital infrastructure, and they are trolling the psychological infrastructure.
Right.
The operation clearly aimed to damage Hillary Clinton, but the sources show they also actively sought to elevate Donald Trump.
Yes, that became a clear directive.
So to understand how Russia's efforts found a foothold, you have to look at the people advising the candidate. Because Trump was running a highly unconventional campaign, and that attracted an unconventional and, frankly, a highly vulnerable circle of advisors.
It really did. I mean, let's look at the resumes of the people the campaign brought on. It is staggering when you consider the traditional vetting process for a presidential campaign.
It's night and day.
First, you have Carter Page. His PhD thesis was rejected twice before he finally got it. And the FBI had actually been monitoring him way back in 2013 because Russian spies were actively trying to recruit him.
And we know from FBI wiretaps that those same Russian spies secretly mocked Page.
Yeah, they were not impressed.
No, they literally called him an idiot who was eager for money and influence.
Then you have George Papadopoulos. Trump introduced him to the media as an excellent guy, but his resume basically highlighted his time at a Model UN.
Model UN. For a presidential advisor.
Right. Yet, within weeks of joining the campaign, he's mingling with foreign diplomats and promising he can set up a meeting between Trump and Putin.
And then at the senior level, you had Paul Manafort.
Oh, Manafort is a huge piece of this.
He joined the campaign essentially for free, but he was hiding millions of dollars in Ukraine-related debt to a Russian oligarch named Oleg Deripaska.
Massive conflict of interest.
Right. Manafort actually emailed an associate offering to give Deripaska private briefings on the campaign to, quote, get whole on his debts.
Unbelievable.
And don't forget Michael Flynn. He was ousted from his role running the Defense Intelligence Agency. A year later, he's attending an anniversary gala for RT, the Russian state television network.
Sitting right next to Putin.
Sitting at a table right next to Vladimir Putin. So what does this all mean? Did these individuals actively seek out the Trump campaign to push a foreign agenda? Or was the campaign just so desperate for warm bodies that they inadvertently built a magnet for compromised figures?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really the latter creating the opportunity for the former.
Okay, explain that.
Trump ran on a platform that was openly defiant of the traditional Washington establishment. And that defiance alienated the traditional, experienced foreign policy experts in his own party.
Right, the Never Trump movement.
Exactly. They publicly refused to work for him. So that created a massive vacuum in his campaign structure. And that vacuum was eagerly filled by men looking for redemption, profit, or just a return to influence.
They needed jobs.
Yeah. Because they lacked standard vetting and were burdened by their own desperate ambitions, they were incredibly easy targets for foreign manipulation.
That makes a lot of sense. So up until the summer of 2016, the Russian hacks and the vulnerabilities in the Trump campaign were operating on parallel tracks.
They hadn't quite intersected yet.
Right. But as the election drew closer, those tracks violently collided both in public and in private. And the most glaring private collision happened on June 9th at Trump Tower.
Oh, the infamous Trump Tower meeting.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort sat down with a Russian lawyer named Natalia Veselnitskaya.
The top brass.
The very top. Trump Jr. took the meeting because an intermediary promised him official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary as part of, quote, Russia and its government support for Mr. Trump.
And he replied to that email saying, if it's what you say, I love it.
I love it, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So when the meeting starts, Don Jr. bluntly says, I believe you have some information for us.
Just right to the point.
Right. But instead of handing over a smoking gun, Veselnitskaya launches into this meandering lobbyist pitch about repealing the Magnitsky Act.
Remind us what that is.
It's a set of sanctions against Russian officials accused of human rights abuses, which absolutely infuriated Putin. The campaign officials felt it was a bait and switch and basically ended the meeting disappointed.
Okay, so if no dirt was actually handed over, that entire meeting was just a massive waste of time for the campaign, right? They got absolutely nothing out of it.
You'd think so. But from an intelligence perspective, the meeting wasn't about exchanging information. It was a test.
A test.
Yeah, former CIA officials noted that this is classic Russian tradecraft. Before handing over stolen goods or officially compromising a target, you test them to see if they will accept foreign help or if they will call the FBI.
Oh, wow.
The top brass of the Trump campaign took the meeting, explicitly asked for the dirt, and when they didn't get it, they kept the entire interaction a secret.
They passed the test.
They passed the test. They proved they were completely receptive to foreign assistance.
That is wild. And while that's happening in private, the public collision is absolute chaos.
Complete chaos.
On the eve of the Democratic National Convention, the emails that the GRU stole from the DNC are dumped online through WikiLeaks.
The timing was brutal.
It causes an immediate firestorm. The emails show internal party bias against Bernie Sanders, and the chairwoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, is forced to resign right as the convention is starting. It completely derails the political narrative.
And just days before that convention chaos, you have FBI Director James Comey holding an unprecedented press conference.
Oh, right.
He announces that Hillary Clinton won't face criminal charges over her use of a private email server. But he publicly scolds her, literally calling her extremely careless.
Which just keeps the email scandal dominating the headlines.
Oh.
And then at a rally in late July, Donald Trump looks right into the cameras and makes a shocking public plea.
I remember watching this.
He says, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
And he was referring to the personal emails Clinton had deleted from her server before handing it over to investigators.
Right.
But the mechanism of what happens next is just staggering. Hours after he uttered those words on live television, Russian GRU hackers launched fresh spear phishing attacks, specifically targeting the private email accounts of Clinton's personal office.
They literally took it as an order.
They heard the request, and they immediately executed a cyber attack to fulfill it.
This is like someone standing in front of a burning building, shrugging, and publicly asking the arsonist to come back with more matches.
That's a great way to put it.
It's just so blatant, and the smoke was everywhere. At this point, the U.S. intelligence community finally started to wake up and connect the dots, moving from passive observation to an active investigation.
Yes. And the tipping point for that investigation takes us back to London, to that wine bar we mentioned at the very beginning of the show.
The Kensington Wine Rooms.
Exactly. In May, George Papadopoulos was having drinks there with Alexander Downer, who was Australia's High Commissioner to the UK. Downer is buying Papadopoulos a gin and tonic, just trying to get a read on Trump's foreign policy, and Papadopoulos casually drops a bombshell.
He is just showing off to an established diplomat, basically.
Pure ego. He tells Downer that Russia has damaging material on Hillary Clinton.
Wow.
Downer thinks it's weird, notes it in a diplomatic cable to Australian intelligence, but it just sits in the archives.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happens. But 2 months later, when WikiLeaks actually drops the stolen DNC emails, Downer realizes exactly what Papadopoulos was talking about.
The puzzle pieces click together.
Yes, Australian intelligence immediately pulls that cable and passes the tip to the U.S. Embassy in London.
And it lands on the desk of an FBI agent named Peter Strutzak. He realizes the gravity of what he's looking at, right?
Based on this direct tip from an allied nation that a Trump advisor knew about the Russian hack before it happened, Strutzak officially opens the counterintelligence investigation. He gives it the code name Crossfire Hurricane. And this is the exact moment the U.S. government officially begins investigating the links between the Trump campaign and the Russian government.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
The FBI had been monitoring Carter Page for years. They knew the DNC had been hacked by Russian military intelligence since 2015. Why did it take an Australian diplomat buying a 20-something a gin and tonic for the FBI to finally realize they needed to open a formal investigation?
Well, this raises an important question about how our national security apparatus is structured.
How so?
Think of the U.S. intelligence community like a massive hospital where the radiologist, the surgeon, and the pharmacist aren't allowed to look at the same patient chart.
Oh, the silos.
Right. Spying is inherently fragmented by law.
Yeah.
You have the FBI looking at domestic crime and counterintelligence. You have the NSA looking at foreign signals and cyber traffic.
Right.
And you have the CIA managing human sources overseas. Seeing the full picture required crossing the streams of cyber evidence from the DNC, human intelligence out of Moscow, and allied tips from places like Australia.
It is a bureaucratic nightmare.
Exactly. No single agency had the full puzzle.
But they eventually put it together.
They did. Right around the time Crossfire Hurricane is opened, CIA Director John Brennan is sequestered in his office reviewing raw, highly classified human intelligence.
From where?
He is reading reports from sources that reach deep inside the Kremlin. And this intelligence proves that Vladimir Putin personally ordered the operation.
Putin himself.
Yes, not just to cause chaos, but specifically to damage Hillary Clinton and help elect Donald Trump.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When you pull all these threads together, the 2016 election wasn't just a brutal political contest. It was a target.
A massive target.
It was the staging ground for a highly sophisticated hybrid warfare campaign. Russia exploited a fundamental lack of cybersecurity at the DNC by using incredibly simple spear phishing tactics.
A fake Google alert.
Yeah. And they weaponized the genuine, pre-existing frustrations of a highly polarized American public by manipulating the algorithms of social media to organize real-world chaos.
And they found willing, untested targets in a remarkably unprepared campaign staff trying to fill a power vacuum.
Yeah.
It was a perfect storm of structural and psychological vulnerabilities, and the Kremlin capitalized on every single one of them.
This deep dive proves why media literacy and critical thinking are absolute non-negotiable skills in the modern world. I mean, when information can be weaponized so effectively by state actors to manipulate how you feel, what protests you attend, and how you vote, being an informed, critical citizen is literally your best defense.
I completely agree. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Go for it.
Everything we just discussed,
Yeah.
the hacking, the trolling, the manipulation, happened a decade ago using what we would now consider rudimentary tools.
Right, before ChatGPT and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. If a combination of cheap spear phishing emails and a few hundred social media trolls working 12-hour shifts was enough to successfully disrupt the democratic process of a global superpower back in 2016, how much more vulnerable are our institutions today now that the blueprint is out there? And artificial intelligence can generate that same highly targeted, emotionally manipulative propaganda millions of times faster.
Wow. The snowpack is always shifting and the avalanche is always building. It's really up to you to pay attention to the mountain. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and we'll catch you next time.